the Pagani Zonda. This isn't just any Zonda. There are Zondas and then there are Zondas. This is the Zonda HP Barchetta, Horatio Pagani's ultimate take.
Some cars are not made to fill highways or sell by the millions. They are born as icons, sculpted like art. Wrapped in secrecy and given a price tag so outrageous that only the wealthiest collectors could even dream of ownership.
The car that is behind me, the Chiron Supersport 300 Plus. This is the very car that was used as Bugatti set the world record, achieving a top speed.
They are experiments, prototypes, or one-offs that defined entire eras, yet were never repeated. Today, we count down the rarest and most expensive cars in the world that were never made again. Machines that command attention not just because of their looks, but because of the incredible stories attached to them. Ferrari 250 GT California Spider. If there is one car that embodies Hollywood glamour, Italian passion, and pure scarcity, it is the Ferrari 250 GT California Spider. This was never meant to be an ordinary car. In the late 1950s, Ferrari's US dealer Luigi Chinetti asked for a convertible designed for the American market, something that could cruise down Beverly Hills boulevards one day and conquer the Sebring racetrack the next. Enzo Ferrari delivered with the California Spider, built between 1957 and 1963. Only 106 were ever made, 50 long wheelbase and 56 short wheelbase versions, each clothed in Scaglietti coachwork, hammered by hand. Under the hood sat a 3-litre Colombo V12 producing close to 280 horsepower, enough to push the Spider past 145 miles per hour and sprint from 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds, blistering for its time. But the allure was not just performance. The car was a rolling sculpture with flowing fenders, an impossibly low stance, and interiors lined with leather and gauges that looked like jewelry. Racers proved its muscle. Factory-backed Spiders took class wins at Sebring in both 1959 and 1960. Movie stars cemented its legend. James Coburn owned one that sold decades later for over $10 million. French actor Alain Delon had another, discovered as a barn find and sold for a staggering $18.5 million in 2015. Even a replica of the Spider became famous thanks to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where it met an unforgettable fate through a plate glass window. Today, the California Spider remains one of the most desirable Ferraris ever built. With just over 100 in existence and values reaching past $20 million, it is proof that rarity, beauty, and performance combined create a legend that will never fade. If Ferrari's Spider represents celebrity and glamour, the next car shows how engineering genius alone can rewrite history and set a world record in the process. Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR Coupe. In May 2022, the automotive world was stunned when a single car sold for $135 million at a private auction, instantly becoming the most expensive car ever sold. That car was the 1955 Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR Coupe, a machine so rare that only 2 were ever built. The story begins with Mercedes' withdrawal from racing after the tragic 1955 Le Mans disaster. The company had created the 300 SLR for competition, but with racing cancelled, 2 coupes were finished instead, designed by engineer Rudolf Uhlenhaut. One became his personal company car, driven daily through the German countryside. Imagine pulling up to a business meeting in a magnesium-bodied 180-mile-per-hour prototype while everyone else drove modest sedans. To many employees, it seemed almost surreal, the boss using what was essentially a race car as his commuter. Neighbors recalled the sight with awe, saying the sound of the Uhlenhaut's exhaust would echo through valleys long after the car had disappeared. The technology was decades ahead. A 3-litre straight-8 engine produced over 300 horsepower. The lightweight space-frame chassis weighed just over 2,200 pounds. A rear-mounted 5-speed transmission gave perfect balance. Test drivers described the noise as a fighter jet, shrieking at full throttle, a sound that rattled glass in nearby villages whenever Uhlenhaut passed. He once proved its speed by driving from Stuttgart to Munich in just over an hour, averaging more than 130 miles per hour on public roads in the 1950s. Few machines in history have ever blended danger, beauty, and speed so perfectly. Both coupes stayed under Mercedes' protection for decades, until one was finally sold in 2022. The proceeds went to a global scholarship fund in science and sustainability, but the sale price of $135 million guaranteed its immortality. Today, the Uhlenhaut Coupe is not just a car. It is rolling art, an engineering relic, and the crown jewel of automotive auctions. More than money, it represents an era when racing shaped road cars, when risk and innovation walked hand in hand, and when legends like Rudolf Uhlenhaut left behind creations that will never be equaled. If Mercedes proved a prototype could become the most expensive car in history, another brand shattered speed limits so violently that the world had to redefine what a road car could be. Bugatti Chiron, Supersport 300+. The year was 2019, and Bugatti decided to push the limits of physics. Test driver Andy Wallace climbed into a Chiron prototype at Volkswagen's Erlesian track in Germany. On the endless straight, he buried the throttle. The speedometer surged past 200, then 250, then 280 miles per hour. Finally, the world watched as the needle crossed an unimaginable barrier, 304.77 miles per hour. No production-based car had ever broken 300 before. The achievement didn't just set a record, it rewrote what people thought a road car could be. To celebrate, Bugatti created a road-going tribute. The Chiron Supersport 300+, limited to just 30 units. Each car wore exposed black carbon fiber with bright orange racing stripes, echoing Bugatti's historic liveries. The body was lengthened by almost 10 inches to stabilize airflow, while enormous intakes gulped air like jet turbines. The tires, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2S, were so stressed at top speed that every single one was X-rayed before use and filled with nitrogen for safety. Even the wheels were balanced with aerospace-level precision, because at over 300 miles per hour, the smallest vibration could become catastrophic. Power came from Bugatti's monstrous 8-litre quad-turbocharged W16, tuned to 1,578 horsepower. Though customer cars were electronically limited to 273 miles per hour for safety, the capability remained proven. This was the first road car ever certified to cross 300. Drivers described the sensation as less like piloting a car and more like controlling a low-flying aircraft. Each Chiron Supersport 300+ sold for €3.5 million, and every unit was spoken for immediately. Today, private sales can exceed 7 million. More than just a car, the 300+ became a line in the sand. It showed that speed barriers exist only until someone decides to ignore them. From a record-breaking Bugatti, we turn to a boutique builder who makes every car by hand and once created a machine so rare, only 3 exist on Earth. Pagani Zonda HP Barchetta. Horacio Pagani has always said that cars should be art first, machines second. In 2017, he unveiled his masterpiece, the Zonda HP Barchetta, a farewell tribute to the Zonda line and perhaps the boldest Pagani ever built. Only 3 Barchettas exist. The name Barchetta, meaning little boat, was chosen for its roofless, windswept design. The car is finished entirely in exposed, deep blue carbon fiber with a contrasting white stripe running down the center. Polished silver wheels gleam like jewelry, while the rear fenders sweep dramatically over partly covered wheels. It looks more like a fantasy sketch than a road-legal car. Behind the driver sits a 7.3-litre Mercedes-AMG V12 tuned to 800 horsepower. Paired with a 6-speed manual, the Barchetta rockets to 60 in under 3 seconds and tops out at more than 220 miles per hour. Inside, every surface is crafted by hand, from milled aluminum switches to leather stitched with obsessive precision. At launch, the price was $17 million, the most expensive new car in the world at the time. One car stayed with Pagani himself. Another went to a private European collector. The third belonged to a Russian businessman who famously crashed it during a rally in Croatia. Instead of scrapping it, Pagani's team spent nearly 2 years rebuilding the car by hand. Every carbon weave matched perfectly until it was as new again. Today, the Zonda HP Barchetta is valued beyond $20 million. It is not just rare, it is unattainable, a jewel in the pantheon of hypercars that will never be repeated. If Pagani's creation feels like a rolling sculpture, Lamborghini's wildest one-off looks more like a fighter jet preparing for battle, and it was designed for only one driver: Lamborghini Egoista. The name says it all. Egoista means selfish in Italian, and Lamborghini's one-of-a-kind supercar built in 2013 was never meant to be shared. Created for the brand's 50th anniversary, it was the boldest statement Lamborghini ever made. From the outside, it looks less like a car and more like an F-16 fighter plane. Matte grey panels are slashed with bright orange accents. Movable flaps control airflow at high speeds, and the canopy cockpit opens upward like a jet's. Even the exterior lights follow aviation rules, with red and green markers like an aircraft. Inside, the driver sits alone in a cockpit with a removable steering wheel and a full heads-up display projected on the glass. Getting in or out is a ceremony. Pop the canopy, stand on the seat, and climb over the side like a pilot exiting a jet. Power comes from a 5.2-litre V10 producing 600 horsepower, enough to launch the Egoista past 217 miles per hour. But performance was never the point. The Egoista is pure theatre, a statement of Lamborghini's identity as the world's most extravagant supercar maker. For years, Lamborghini kept the car locked inside its museum, insisting it was not for sale. But rumours swirled in 2025 of a private deal with a Swiss collector for as much as $117 million. Lamborghini has never confirmed it, but even the suggestion shows how powerful its legend has become. While Lamborghini built a jet on wheels, Aston Martin partnered with Formula One engineers to design a road car that drives like a Le Mans prototype. Aston Martin Valkyrie. The Aston Martin Valkyrie is the closest thing to a Formula One car ever allowed on the street. Conceived with Red Bull Racing's technical director Adrian Newey, it was designed to push road-legal engineering to the absolute limit. Production was capped at 150 coupes, 85 convertibles, and 40 track-only AMR Pro models. Each buyer had to sign an agreement not to flip the car for profit or risk losing access to future Aston projects. At its heart is a 6.5-litre Cosworth FUF12 revving beyond 11,000 revolutions per minute. With a hybrid boost system, total output is over 1,150 horsepower. The body is sculpted almost entirely by aerodynamics. Massive ground effect tunnels suck the car to the tarmac, eliminating the need for towering wings. The result is downforce so extreme that at top speed the Valkyrie could theoretically drive upside down in a tunnel. The cabin is tight, more like a cockpit than a luxury interior. Drivers practically wear the car, strapped into racing harnesses with controls on a detachable steering wheel. At around $3.5 million, the Valkyrie was one of the most expensive new cars of its time. But values are already climbing, with early resales fetching well over $4 million. And beginning in 2025, the Valkyrie AMR Pro is set to compete at Le Mans, bringing Aston Martin back to top-tier endurance racing for the first time since 1959. From modern hypercars, we rewind to the golden age of American concept cars, when one fiberglass fantasy nearly vanished forever, only to resurface decades later at auction. Oldsmobile F88. In 1954, General Motors unveiled the Oldsmobile F88 at its traveling Motorama show. The car looked like something from a futuristic comic book: sleek fiberglass body, curved plexiglass windshield, and a dashboard lined with gold-finished gauges. It was Harley Earl's vision of what American performance could look like, and for spectators at the time, it was as if a dream had rolled straight out of science fiction. Underneath the skin, it shared a wheelbase with the early Corvette, but instead of a modest inline-six, the F88 packed Oldsmobile's 324 cubic-inch rocket fight 8, producing about 250 horsepower. That was serious power in the mid-1950s, more than enough to embarrass contemporary sedans and prove that GM's design department wasn't just about style, it was about muscle too. The lightweight fiberglass construction meant the car tipped the scales at just 2,600 pounds, giving it a power-to-weight ratio unheard of for its era. But this was not just a car, it was an idea of where America thought it was headed. Highways filled with futuristic machines that blurred the line between performance and luxury. GM never intended to mass-produce it. Only 4 prototypes were built, and most were destroyed to avoid liability and protect trade secrets. According to legend, one surviving F88 escaped by being hidden in crates marked scrap metal. That survivor resurfaced decades later and, in 2005, stunned the world when it sold for $3.24 million at Barrett-Jackson. Today, it sits in the Gateway Canyons Automobile Museum in Colorado, owned by Discovery Channel founder John Hendricks. Experts estimate its value above $4 million, but in truth, its cultural weight is priceless. The F88 represents the very spirit of mid-century America, when cars weren't just machines, they were rolling dreams of the future. If the F88 was America's forgotten dream car, the next legend is the very first chapter of luxury itself, the birth of Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce, 15 horsepower. The year was 1904, and Charles Rolls and Henry Royce had just joined forces. Their very first model, the Rolls-Royce 15 horsepower, would set the tone for more than a century of craftsmanship and prestige. Only 6 were ever built, and today just one remains, carefully preserved in Scotland as one of the rarest pieces of automotive history still in existence. The fact that only one has survived adds a mythical quality, turning it into a relic not just of automotive history but of industrial beginnings themselves. The 15 GP used a 3-litre, 3-cylinder engine producing, true to its name, about 15 horsepower. That might sound laughable by modern standards, but at the dawn of motoring it was a marvel of smoothness and reliability. It could propel the lightweight carriage-like body to 40 miles per hour, a speed that was both thrilling and terrifying on the unpaved, bumpy roads of the early 20th century. Royce engineered clever innovations for the time, including a long-stroke engine for steady torque delivery, a transmission brake mounted behind the gearbox for added safety, and artillery-style wooden wheels strong enough to survive rough terrain. Inside, passengers experienced something entirely new: refinement. Deep leather seats, wide coach doors, and a lounge-like atmosphere made the car feel like a private drawing room on wheels. This was not just transportation, it was a statement of elegance. It showed that automobiles could be more than machines. They could embody luxury and status. Experts value the lone survivor at over $35 million, though in reality, it is beyond price. The 15 GP is the genesis of Rolls-Royce itself, the moment luxury and engineering first came together in motion, setting the foundation for a legend that continues to this day. If Rolls-Royce's first car proved luxury could be engineered, Porsche's secret project in the 1970s showed how performance could be too good for its own brand to handle. Porsche 916. In the early 1970s, Porsche engineers wanted to transform the humble 914 into a true giant killer. The result was the Porsche 916. a prototype so fast, so rare, and so expensive that it was cancelled almost as soon as it was born. Only 11 were built, each treated like a secret project. They came with reinforced chassis, flared fenders, steel roof panels, and hand-stitched leather interiors. Most importantly, engineers fitted them with engines borrowed from the 911 lineup. First a 2.4-litre flat-six, later a 2.7-litre Carrera engine producing up to 210 horsepower. The lightweight body and short wheelbase made the 916 incredibly agile. With 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and top speeds approaching 150 miles per hour, it outperformed many sports cars of its day. But its biggest problem was price. Selling at 40 to 50,000 Deutsche Marks, more than a fully loaded 911S, it was too costly for a car based on the 914, which had always been considered an entry-level Porsche. Executives worried it might steal the spotlight from the brand's flagship, and so the project was abruptly shelved. The surviving cars, however, became legends. One was delivered to Ferry Porsche's sister, Louise Piech. Another, nicknamed Brutus, was auctioned in Paris for over $1 million. Even unrestored examples are now expected to fetch close to 7 figures. Collectors whisper that the 916's cancellation wasn't only about cost, it may have been because the car performed too well, threatening the prestige of the 911. Today, the Porsche 916 is remembered as the Porsche that never was. A machine too daring for its time, a vision of performance that scared its own creators. Each of the 11 survivors now commands astronomical value, and with every passing year, their legend only grows stronger. From forgotten prototypes and experimental projects, we return to the grand question: what do these cars, built once and never repeated, tell us about the people who dream them into existence? From Ferrari's Hollywood Spider to Mercedes' record-shattering coupe, from Bugatti's 300-mile-per-hour monster to Rolls-Royce's very first steps into luxury, these machines prove that rarity and imagination create legends that money alone cannot buy. Each was born once, lived briefly, and will never be repeated. And yet they endure, in museums, in collections, and in stories like this one. If you enjoyed this journey into the rarest and most expensive cars ever made, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there, hidden in a barn or locked away in a private vault, another forgotten legend is waiting to be rediscovered.